We are here on Cheyenne, Arapaho, Ute, and Ochethi, Shakoween ancestral land at the home of Eddie and Anna Taylor in Lafayette, Colorado. Anna, you've been an educator for 12 years. You're now a first grade teacher, and you've been climbing for a decade. You have a sense of Rainier, Denali, Mount Kenya, Pico de Orizaba, Bugaboo Spire, and Time Wave Zero. Eddie, you are a Patagonia ambassador as well as a full-time high school science teacher and track coach. You're a rock and ice climber who recently summited Everest with the full Circle Everest team. You've climbed all over the world from Moonlight Buttress in Zion National Park to Charanuru Cliffs in Madagascar. Thank you so much for having us here today for this conversation.
We're happy to have you.
Eddie, Anna, I think our kiddos are about a year apart. My toddler is going to be 3 in November, and I think yours is coming up on 2. Is that right?
Yes, so soon.
Has there been an evolution over the last couple years for you getting back to climbing?
Definitely. I would say we made a priority right away to get outside, whether that was in like the version of an epic failure of getting out to climb and we climbed absolutely nothing, or we got a couple pitches in, but we always made it a goal, even from the get-go, to get outside.
Yeah. I think right away we booked a trip to Utah, to Moab, and we're like, all right, we're going to be super bougie. We're going to go. And we booked an Airbnb in Moab, and we were like, this is going to happen. We put that.
I think we each climbed a pitch that day, maybe 2.
Yeah,
but
not very much.
We got out.
Sometimes that is just the goal, like getting out the door.
Totally.
So you mentioned an Airbnb in Moab. Had you used those types of accommodations before being parents, or was this something that you shifted to a little bit more for ease of access?
Yeah, we did it a little bit here and there, but we used to just sleep in the back of Eddie's 4Runner, and it was so lovely and wonderful. We actually, the moment she was born, started researching if we could afford a van. And we couldn't because they're so expensive. But we ended up with a trailer almost immediately because we knew we wanted to still get out. And camping was going to be tricky sometimes with a little one. So
yeah, I noticed your trailer in the driveway. Yeah. Was there anything when you were choosing your camper? Were there deal breakers for families who might be considering a camper?
Yeah. You did all the research.
Yeah. Yeah. And so we went to all the places and looked at the super bougie, huge trailers. And then we looked at the really small ones, and then we basically got this one that was kind of in the middle where it's kind of mass produced. It's not crazy expensive, and it had the 2 bunk beds and a full size bed.
Yeah,
so. Awesome.
Something we could grow into a bit as Zaya gets older. So.
Yeah, love that it has bunk beds.
Yeah.
Was there a specific point over the 2 years where it became easier or harder, or any surprises for you?
I think we were really surprised that when she was little, it actually wasn't so bad. It got a lot harder once she was mobile. And so once she was a toddler, we always had to have an extra person with us, or, one of us always had to be on the ground, something like that. And so we just needed the help of friends a lot more once she became mobile. For us, we were a little surprised. I think we assumed as she grew up, it'd get easier. But I think we're in this sweet spot right now where she has independence, but not a lot of boundaries. And so it gets a little trickier at this stage. But
yeah, 100%. It's funny because my little guy is a different person every month. Some things have gotten easier, though. Totally. Have you found that?
I think it's just more fun to be out with her now. She's so engaged in where we are. And we bring along a bunch of friends that have kiddos of the similar age. So it just becomes playtime. So I think maybe it's harder, but it also feels less stressful because she's having so much fun with it.
So Anna, you are recovering from a knee injury. What happened?
I am just getting older. I was bouldering at the gym and kind of went for a hold, missed, and came down sideways and tore my ACL. Luckily, not too much else, which was great. Just a little bit of my meniscus, but that really put a damper on coming back from pregnancy and postpartum.
A lot of my motivation for these conversations is the fact that we rely on climbing and being outside so much for our mental health. So did you feel an impact on your mental health when you were injured?
Definitely. I mean, every day once I was cleared to go back to work, which I think I went back pretty early compared to what I was supposed to. But once I was back to work, my day was getting to work, somehow getting home, and then trying to figure out how to play with a toddler while on crutches. And so it just made days really long and hard. And getting her in and out of a car seat while on crutches, not allowed to carry any weight, was a really big trick. But I think the beauty of having a toddler during that time too is that you don't have the chance to stop and wallow as much, right? You have to keep moving and you have to keep going. And she actually got really into doing PT with me. So she calls it Mama's PT, which is super cute. And then we'll get out the stretchy bands and she'll start playing with them too. So it's actually made it a lot better having her around.
You recently, over the summer, went on a trip to Yosemite. It looked like a great trip, and we connected a little bit afterward. Do you have a story for when something did not go as planned?
Would you like to take this one?
I feel like my climbing trips and like our climbing trips have been so memorable since Zaya's been born. Like they're not that much, but they're super, super memorable. And so we've done a decent amount of international trips together, but we did this trip to Spain over Christmas where we brought like a bunch of friends and my mom came and it was great because it made it a lot easier to go climbing at the crag. But on the way back, you know how like when you get the diaper bag ready to go, you always make sure you have like a change of clothes for the baby. Anna had a change of clothes. Well, I didn't have a change of clothes. And on the plane, she was sitting on my lap and we were hanging out and like, she hasn't watched any TV at the time. So it's kind of the plane ride to Spain's kind of a big trip. But she was finally like hanging out on my lap. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, she just starts like vomiting all over me. And it wasn't like, I've never seen her vomit before, like other than like little spits up after milk, but it was like The Exorcist or something, just like, and I had no other clothes. I go to the bathroom, I like try to clean everything up. I take my shirt off and like wring it out and whatnot. And so then I go back and I'm like still smelling like awful and looking awful and I can't get anything clean. And so at that point I have the blanket from the airplane. Yeah. So I like have my pants completely off, have the airplane blanket on. And then I do have a jacket, like, 'cause it was winter. So I took my shirt off. I put the jacket on. So I'm walking around the plane with like a puffy jacket and a blanket.
And an airplane blanket.
Because like you could not clean that up. It was so much.
Oh.
For probably a good hour or so, you wore an airplane blanket as a nice sarong kind of skirt.
Yeah.
It was a good look for you.
Parents of young kids are like so resourceful. Like it's amazing the things we come up with.
Yeah.
So let's bring it back home. I'm curious about your roles as educators and whether you feel that teaching goes hand in hand with climbing.
Yes and no. I think teaching from the outside provides like tons of free time, right? But in reality, we have these 2 months off in the summer and almost no flexibility then during the school year. When you're planning for a sub, you have to take a couple hours in order to be gone. And so like, even if you're sick in bed with COVID, you're still sub planning and it takes a few hours and then you can finally relax. And so teaching allows us to have summers together as a family since we're both in that profession, which is amazing. And we get to go on all these lovely trips. But it also means that we're pretty limited on where we can go. Summertime climbing destinations aren't everywhere, right? And so like Patagonia, in order to rock climb, isn't really ever going to be an option because the season is opposite of ours. And so teaching gives us some great flexibility during those 2 months. But during the school year, we're pretty limited to when our breaks are. And during our work week, it means that Eddie and I are pretty scheduled out. So we both get home and he has his climbing days. I have mine. We both have our kiddo days. And so figuring out just life as a family while juggling climbing and that career is a little tricky during the school year. But
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for explaining. I think we do have this perception of like free summers, but like you said, like no one's climbing in the valley in the summer. Like there are a lot of climbing destinations that aren't available at that time. So
Yeah, and and there's like different, I guess, like seasons of teaching, but for me, like I think the climbing and the teaching all really balance out really well together. Like by the end of the summer, I'm usually ready and excited to go see the kids, and that's like my way of making an impact in the community. Like climbing is something that I kind of do for me, going and teaching and working with kids is like what I give back and what I feel like fills my bucket in a different way. And, now, I mean, kind of bringing it all the way around, it's like now it's just trying to figure out how, like, one of the most important thing is to spend time with Zaya, right? So now it's like, okay, how do we spend time with our little girl? How do we help the community out into teaching? Like, that's our bigger role. And then how do we still fulfill ourselves by going climbing? And so it's like now it's not just like a two-way street.
I know.
It's like
I
a
think of
three-way
it like
intersection.
a triangle.
Yeah.
Do your teaching careers instruct how you parent?
I feel like I was actually really lucky to be a teacher before I became a parent. There's just a lot of like language or nuance in how you give a direction or ask a question versus like give a command more so, right? That as a teacher, you kind of have to think through when you've got 25 little bodies staring at you. And I often catch myself like using a lot of that language in parenting too.
So talking about risk, which is a huge hot topic for climbers, Eddie, you summited Mount Everest. There are risks involved with high altitude mountaineering. Has your perception about risk, either with remote climbing destinations or high altitude mountaineering, changed since you've become a dad?
I don't know if my like relationship at risk has really changed. I mean, every single climber says this who's ever existed, but I think myself as like a relatively risk-averse climber. I mean, Everest is risky. It's riskier than things I would want to do on a regular basis for sure. But I think like, we'll say specifically with the Baffin trip, I had opportunity to go to Baffin this summer. I had a friend who was going. They had all the logistics. They're like, we're going to be gone for a month. And for me, that was what was too much. Zaya is not even 2. And I didn't want to be gone for an entire month. Like the things that change in 4 weeks, like is crazy. And I didn't want to be away from that long. So I can't say like my relationship with risk has changed very much, but my relationship with like how long I want to be away from her has changed quite a bit.
Have you given thought to risk and your risk perception?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been kind of more of an anxious person than Eddie. And so risk has always been scarier for me, I think, and more heightened, even if it's not there. And after having Zaya, there was definitely an increase in my anxiety around just small things, whether it was climbing or not. And kind of coming to terms with that in a climbing lens took some time and some figuring out. I think for me, though, the biggest risk factor that we kind of continuously talk about is like more Zaya or more kiddo based, right? Are we comfortable with this crag? Are we going to bring her there? Or is this a time to call in the grandparents? And so figuring out the risk of where we're bringing her is the bigger piece, I think, for me in that case.
What are some factors you consider as you're making that assessment?
At this age right now for her, the biggest is rockfall, right? And so is it a crag we trust and we know? Is it a place we can get her far enough away from the wall? Is it a place where she has like a safe place to play that's not cliffside, right? And so it's more so approaching how do we involve our kid in a safe way?
Like we do a lot of research and we ask a lot of friends and we ask a lot of people and we reach out and we're like, oh, is this kid friendly? Because I mean, I think the one thing with the climbing community in general is people are pretty happy to give you information. Like people, everyone complains about the beta sprayers, but people want to people want to tell you everything about every trip, and so that's really helpful, and it's really helpful for us in figuring these things out.
Micah actually had this suggestion of having a checkbox for kid or family friendly on Mountain Project.
Yeah.
And like having that defined in some way.
Yeah.
Is it the Wild Iris guidebook that has that?
Some
in the
guidebooks
book?
have it, yeah.
I think it's Wild Iris, I want to say, that has like that as a separate check mark, which is so amazing.
Is there any other wisdom that you'd like to share or anything you think we've missed?
I mean, I think the biggest thing we found is we made some new friends when we were pregnant with her. And then once we had her, who were also climbers and having kids as well. And that's been such a saving grace for my mental health, but also our fun when we get outside. We can bring other kids, they can play together. And that's been amazing. I mean, we kind of forced some people to be our friends at the climbing gym when we saw they were having a kid too and made them be our friends. And it was great because it's allowed us to have a little more of a community with kids. And that's just made all the difference in the world.
I think like the one thing I'll kind of say is like, yeah, we kind of talked about this a little bit, but like Instagram, right? It looks like people are like, we're out there doing it all the time and stuff. And it's like, it's not like, we're not like these incredibly motivated climbers that we're out doing it. It's just that we do it. And because we keep doing it and we keep like making it a priority in our life, it looks like we're really motivated. You know, like every day is not like smiling and rainbows and Zaya's like loving it. I mean, especially when she was, you know, younger, where it was like, okay, well, she just had a blowout on the bouldering pad and now we got to figure out how to clean this up. So, you know, it's not like always perfect, but I think at the same time, right, like because we've done it so much, we are motivated.
Yeah, the depiction online is not, it's just like little snippets, right? So it's never the whole story. Well, thank you so much. I think these conversations are critical for parental wellness, maternal wellness, for new families who want to keep climbing. And I'm just so grateful that you had us here in your home and that you opened up to us a little bit about what it's like for your family behind the Instagram scenes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think these conversations are important for people to see and just hear that it's real. We're all going to have the blowouts at the crag someday, so.
How's it going?
What should I hold up to? The big one? Up there? Oh, the black one. Yeah. Good job, Zaya. I was taking one of my first nights away from Zaya and really just doing it as an experience to get away. So I went on like an overnight solo trail run to this area near Vail in Colorado. And it was beautiful and gorgeous, but there was a lot of bears in the area. And I had to pump because I was still breastfeeding her and didn't want to deal with a cooler, so I was just dumping. And realized that there were so many signs about not dumping food, right, with bears. And I was talking to another woman and she was like, oh, I think you have to deal with your breast milk too. Because I was talking to her about pumping. And I realized I like needed to maybe dig a hole and dump my pumped breast milk into it, which was just this whole other layer. Like
I'm imagining you out there like breast engorged, digging. You're like,
totally.
oh.
Like I have to. And I didn't want to turn around and go home because I just needed that day away to try it out for myself and feel like what it was like to be on my own again.